want retribution. Oh yeah, we 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 want retribution.
What's up, everyone? Happy Thursday! It's especially happy today because we have a special guest today. So I'm joined, as always, by Jules and Brandon. Say what's up, guys.
Hello, everyone.
But we
Happy
have a special
Thursday.
we have a special guest today. Brenda, go ahead and say what's up and introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? Brenda, Valencia. Nice to meet you all.
You'll probably see her face in the future. You know, she's an up and coming actress. She's gonna be in big movies. But with that being said, okay, Brenda, I thought of some questions to ask you.
All
Right?
right.
Okay. How long have you known that you always wanted to be an actor?
That's a tricky question because I never really thought I was going to be an actress.
Okay.
I did do theater in high school. Like we had like
Mhm.
it's called like Willpower to Youth, which is an organization that came out to East LA and helped us out, to put on a production for the community. And I thought like this is cringe. But it paid. It paid. It
Yeah.
was an internship. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's cool. And then I like continued. I took a theater class too, and I didn't like it. I was
Yeah.
in the performing arts building for dance, and that was it. That I
Mhm.
thought I was gonna be like a professional dancer. I That did not happen. And then I went to college, and I was like, okay, I was going for criminal justice because I wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That was my family's high hopes for me. So you can imagine when I told them I wanted to be an actress, they
You
were
became
like,
the family disappointment.
yeah, basically. And when I was there, I was like, oh, I went to a couple classes and I didn't like it. It was depressing. I was like, I'm never going to enjoy this in my life. So I started thinking, I had like a semester where I was kind of looking through all the majors and I was like, what do I like? What do I like? What do I like? And I mean, I enjoyed watching movies. Growing up, I loved Pan's Labyrinth. That was my favorite movie of all time. I could watch it endlessly. And Guillermo del Toro was like his imagination and everything.
Uh-huh.
It just inspired me. And I was like, this is the one thing that both of my parents loved. And I grew up in separate homes. They were separated, but that was the one thing they had in common. We would always go and watch movies together. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna try this out. And so I went and did the the cinema and TV arts program there
Mhm.
at CSUF, and I decided to go on set, like to get experience behind, like in front of the camera, but to basically learn
Yeah.
what other
Yeah.
people were doing behind the camera. And then I fell into it. Like it,
Yeah.
it just happened.
You like
So-
fell in love with the art.
Yeah, I fell in love
Wow.
with acting too.
Okay.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Do you ever feel scared or intimidated being like a person of color and being in the film industry?
I did at first.
Mhm.
I really did because a lot of the projects that I was looking at and submitting to, like now you have the filters, where you put like Latinx,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
these things. But at first, when I was starting off, I didn't see that. So when I was submitting to things, like they would put like white descent
Uh-huh.
or like
Uh-huh.
European.
Yeah.
And so I would read like the description, like the synopsis, and it was so intriguing. And I was like, damn, I would love
Mm.
to play this character.
Yeah.
And it wasn't gonna happen because they were seeking primarily just white. So at first I did, and then after I started seeing it as a pro, because I was like, I can get an agent like this.
Mhm.
There's so little representation.
It's true. Yeah.
Why not? And so what I started doing was like, okay, doing all my research. I started doing my headshots, like looking at where I can get headshots, resume, everything. And Rio at the beginning was not a thing I had because I was just starting off.
Yeah.
So what I did was like record like monologues of myself performing them and crafted that up together in emails and pitched them out to agents. And what I would put would be Latina actress. And to
Mhm.
stand out even more, I would put Chicana actress because
Okay.
of Mexican American.
Yeah.
And when I got the Chicana, I got my first agent because the agent called me in and he's like, I've never seen anyone put like Chicana on something.
Mm.
Like what? Like isn't that just Latina? like a Latina? And I was
Uh-huh.
like, no, well, Chicana primarily just Mexican American.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, oh, he's like, yeah, that's what caught our attention. So I was like,
Nice.
oh, okay.
Wow.
And then he told me, he's like, there's so little out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so when you put things like that, it makes you stand out instead of just putting actress.
hmm
You put what specifically you are to represent, but knowing that that's not going to be the only label for you.
Have you seen the Black Panther 2, Namor? Have you seen how they completely redesigned him to be?
I saw that.
Yeah,
I saw the
right.
trailer and I was hyped. Although I'm
Mhm.
gonna be kind of sad that he is the antagonist for this film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be kind of sad seeing my peeps like
Like where
get their ass
the
beat.
evil.
Yeah. But still seeing that representation was gonna be really nice, especially because one of the actresses, I don't know what character she's playing, but I had seen like a couple years back, I started following this director who made a movie called La Llorona.
Mm.
And it's not the typical spin. I have not watched the film, but I saw him put it out there and I was like, I
Mhm.
should follow more like Mexican directors, you know?
Yeah.
And I saw him, wait, I think he might be Guatemalan. Central American. That's like
Yeah.
Central American
Okay.
director.
Okay. Yeah.
And I saw him put that out there and he got awards for that film. And the actress that came out in that, the lead actress, she got like nods there. She got a lot of awards because of it. And then I got to see her in this trailer. So like that's
Wow.
really neat that I got to follow her path.
Mhm.
You know, within like a couple years now she's in the next Marvel film. So that's
Wow.
something that was really cool to see.
Is it important for you to like represent your background, like your ethnicity?
It is. It is the one thing that I have not compromised and I don't want to. I remember getting a voice acting role and it was for an audiobook. And in this audiobook it was a Latina character. And when I was doing the audition for that one, I missed the meeting because I was at work. And I called the guy back, but he wasn't like available at the time. So I left him a voicemail. And
Mhm.
in that voicemail, he called me back. He's like, hey, you know, just letting you know, like, you got the role. Like, just hearing your voice in the voicemail was like enough for me to know that you'll be able to create this character. So, like, cool, you know, and no hate to him. He was a white director, you know. So
Yeah.
he got like this studio booth and we were there recording lines and he wanted it to sound a little bit more like Mexican, you know, a little bit more
What?
with that little accent. And I was like, I'm not going to do that because like not all of us have a deep ass accent. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lie. I have a little one,
Yeah.
you know, every now and then it slips, but it's not like prominent.
Yeah.
It's not
Mhm.
something that's going to define me.
Mhm.
And my crossing line was when he did ask me like, oh, you know, like you need to be more excited for this. And I was like, okay, yeah, like I'll be excited. And I did an excited take. And he's like, no, like, Speedy Gonzalez, you know, he's like, arriba, you know, and I was like,
Yikes.
Damn.
I was,
Yikes.
it was awkward. 'Cause I was in the booth. Like, I was in the booth, and outside were like all these white people, you know? And I was like, this is like, I hesitated to say anything
Yeah.
because I was like, you know, well, I'm just the actress. Like, they
Yeah.
hired
Yeah.
me to do this role,
Mhm.
but it's like, I'm not going to do that. And I told him, I was like, well, we actually don't say that. Like
Yeah.
anywhere you go, you're not gonna hear arriba, arriba.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna hear that.
Yeah.
I was like, I can do like something else, something different, and I give him
Uh-huh.
different things. And he's like, okay, yeah, that sounds a little better. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then he's like, yeah, it's because Speedy Gonzalez says that. I was like, yeah, he's not a representative, you know, it
Yeah,
doesn't
he's not-
represent what we actually do. So
Yeah.
so that was the one time that I did.
He
feel
just said it
that.
like casually,
Yeah,
like
he
super
was just
casually.
yeah, he was just like, oh, just say it, like arriba, arriba, and I was like, I'm not gonna say that. No, yeah,
I remember for me, I've told this story before. The first time I ever like felt like I wanted to do film, I'm a freshman year at Cal State Fullerton. I remember I was a PA on one of the USC like shoots, and I was there like I was all nervous because you know you're a young kid,
Yeah.
like it's my first time doing it. And I remember I got to the set, which was like by USC, you know, it's like in kind of like it's South Central. It's not the best place, right?
yeah,
And I pull up, I'm waiting there, and there's this guy there, like who I later find out is the director, and he's kind of like just looking around and kind of trying to avoid me. And then finally, the producer comes who hired me, and he's like, "Oh, this is Steve, like he's one of the PAs," and he's like, "Oh, you're a PA? I thought you were a gangster. Like I thought you were gonna,
what?
you're here to steal
Wow.
the set, yeah."
Damn.
And I was wearing a Cal State Fullerton
You know,
shirt.
like, why would I come and rob you with my
Fuck
alone
that.
my shirt? You know?
I know, right? Yeah, but like it's just so casual, you know. It sucks when that happens. But okay, so for if it isn't already obvious, like what's your ethnicity?
I am Mexican. My parents are both from Mexico, and I was born here, so
Mhm.
Chicana.
I like that you rep the Chicana. Like, not a lot of people rep that.
Yeah, it's because my dad implemented that into me. You know, he was like, he's like, yeah, you know, for Chicana, you're representing that you're Mexican and American. He's very proud of America. So that's weird to me. But he's like, he's very proud to be here.
Mhm.
And he's like, you're so lucky, you're American, you know? So
Mhm.
anytime I said like Latina, he's like, you're not Latina, you're Chicana. No, you're
Mm.
Mexican and American,
Mhm.
you know? But to me, I'm always like, I'm just Mexican.
Yeah,
That's
no, I feel
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Our dad is
Yeah.
like that too.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that. Yeah, he's very like very yeah. He represents like he loves 4th of July. Like he's just very he said well he was from Mexico, right?
Yeah.
But he like likes representing like the American flag and all that stuff because he now is a citizen, so he's kind of like we're here, we live here, like this is also part of our culture because they say that they've lived here longer than what they've been in Mexico. So they're like, they are from here, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say, right? They grew up a lot. Like they came here when they were, I think my dad was like 20 or something, and he kind of just grew up from there. So it's interesting to see that. And that's cool that you like, have you always felt like you knew kind of like your identity, like you were always connected to it?
Definitely not. I lived in Arkansas for 2 years. One when I was like very little, so I don't
Mhm.
remember that. But for fourth grade, I was over there, and it felt weird
Mhm.
because all of my friends were not Hispanic. Maybe I had like two, you
Mhm.
know, two with that background. And whenever I tried speaking Spanish to them, like all the other little kids would just look at me weird, you know, or whenever I went out with my family, like they would just look at us weird. And I never thought like why why that was a thing until
Mhm.
obviously I got older and I was like, well, all brown and there's like all white people, like white
Mhm.
skin around
Mhm.
me, you know?
Yeah.
So obviously they're gonna be looking at me weird. But I had trouble kind of realizing it during middle school. I think was the most when I tried to like not be brown, like not be
Mm.
Hispanic. You know, at that point I was like dealing with the identity crisis
Yeah.
because at that time it was like Tumblr, you know, and like MySpace and all these new
Mhm.
trends where it was cute to have like European styles,
Yeah.
you know, and to have light skin.
Yeah.
And I'm brown, you know, and in the
Mhm.
summer I turn a couple more tints darker.
Yeah.
You know, so I was looking up like all these remedies, like how to get light skin, you know, like putting it on my skin.
Really?
Yeah, it was really
Wow.
bad. And after like I think it was in high school when I had my teachers, they were the ones that told me like you need to be proud. You know, you need to like be proud of who you are and your heritage. And that's when everything changed for me.
Wow, that's cool.
Especially going to Cal State Fullerton.
Mhm.
Like there are not like there was just not a lot of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
No, I
people
feel
that
that.
look
Yeah.
like me, you know? Like I would be in a class and literally everyone around me, like maybe there'd be like three black kids, like a couple like Hispanics, like Guatemalan, like all Central Americans over there, you know? And that was it.
Yeah.
You know, and once you enter the room and you see that, like you do feel a little intimidated to be there.
Mhm.
You know, so it is a bad thing, but at the same time I tried to like hold myself up because I knew that I was there because of all the sacrifices my dad made for me to be there.
Yeah.
You know, so
Damn, that's real,
Chicana,
dude.
I had to
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
You know, I had to own for him.
I mean, speaking
That's
on
cool.
Cal State Fullerton, so the way I kind of met you, I didn't really meet you,
Yeah.
but we had the same class together. Is that we were both in the short films for Cal State Fullerton. What's kind of significant about that is that they took place during the pandemic. You know, everybody stayed home from college except us. We
Yeah.
would actually have classes in person because we were shooting a short film. I just wanted you to take us through that journey. How was it filming a short film during the pandemic?
It was really difficult because I like to say that our short film was cursed because from the beginning we had a different director, and the director for The Distant, which was Mike Castro, he ended up like he was the producer on that. And well, actually, he was the co-director, and they were looking for a producer. And I had done Com Week previously, where I was a CEO for that. And so I was like, hey, you know, like I could be a good asset. You know, I'm in the film too. Like I'm in the film program. And they interviewed me, they liked me, they brought me in, and then everything went to hell after that because COVID got worse. And the director there, she was worried that she would bring it home to her family, which makes sense because at the time it was horrible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and she backed out altogether and she took her script with her. So
Really?
No.
I didn't know that.
and this was about like 2 weeks before we started because you had to basically gather your whole crew before you entered into the semester already, so that once you entered class, you can start already pre-production, already planning, location scouting, everything.
Yeah.
And that was the hard part because now we had to go and look for a whole crew because the original crew was her crew, was people that wanted to work with her. And so now it was Mike and myself going around and being like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, I'm producer, but you were co-director. Like, are you just gonna be a director now? Like, are we gonna create a new script? Like, what's gonna happen? And we had to talk with our professor, Mun, and she was telling us, like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen, but you guys gotta get it done.
Yeah.
You know, because we have a budget of 10,000 per film and that needs to be used, you know. So we were like, okay, fine. So we were stressing out and we had to go get a whole different crew and come up with a script within our crew. Like, so with the crew we had, we still didn't have a script, and the other people were already going location scouting and already planning everything, casting, and we were still like, what are we gonna write? Like, what are we gonna film?
Yeah.
You know, so we went and we got, like, we had to ask everyone to submit a script. Everyone in the crew had to submit a script, and then we voted on which one we wanted. And it was ultimately between mine and Mike's. And mine was about a woman because of COVID and everything happening. It was that she was stuck at home with an abusive partner. And her only relief was that she was able to leave and go to the park, isolating herself there, being able to draw art, and then
Wow.
go back home and suffer again. Because at the
Mhm.
time, you had to stay home,
Yeah.
you know? So that was my concept. And Mike's was about a guy creating a theater outside for his partner, who ultimately, at the end, she actually passed away, and this is all in his imagination.
Yeah.
You know, so we only had the concepts. We brought him up to the professor, and she said, "You know, I like both of you guys. Like, pick which one you want." And we were gonna go with mine, but at the time, I was also doing acting on the side, and I didn't want to focus on just this, especially when there was already a crew that was like not of my picking. Not that they're bad, but it's just none of us were coordinated at the beginning. So I didn't have high hopes for it. Like I was like, okay, I'm expecting this to fail, not because of the crew, but because none of us really want, yeah, the circumstances. Like everyone was already worried about COVID, and then on top of that, to be worried about this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Like, no. And then Mun was asking more of me for my script, and I was like, I can't elaborate right now. Like, I'm not thinking creatively. I can't. I'm not gonna do this.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember I was there in the classes. I would always see you guys like really struggle. I remember sometimes sometimes some of your crew members wouldn't even show up, right, to like the meetings that we would have, right? And you would speak for them, right?
It was, I think we had like maybe 2 instances where that did happen, but it was a lot of like, again, effort, like trying to create this film while, like, I'm sure everyone had so many things going on in their minds, you know, and so many people were catching COVID. So
Yeah.
it was really bad. And I know a lot of their family members were catching it too. So it was like, I understood, but it was kind of hard to be a producer with films, like for a film that everyone just didn't want to create at that point, you know? And then going into it, once we had everything established and we said we were going to do mics, once we went in, our cinematographer got into a car accident, or he got hit by a car,
Oh
something like
yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
He got hit by a car while on campus.
Oh, wow.
And
Damn.
we had to go and find a new cinematographer and catch him up on everything that was happening. And we also didn't have a production designer, which was really hard because then that fell onto me. And everyone that I tried to reach out to was already working on the other film, or they were doing their own things, or they didn't want to because of COVID. You know, so I was stuck having to deal with that too, go location scouting, deal with all the finance and legal documents and everything. And then once we got to set, we had to film everything that was there, you know. And after, our director fell out, like he was going through some stuff, so he had to step back. And so we were left without a director at the very end.
Damn.
And yeah, and me and the AD, Andrea, she had to, like, we were basically directing the end. And by that, we were annoyed with the film that we just gave it to the editor and we were like, fix it.
Make
Like, you
something,
guys just
yeah.
make something and that's it. We're not gonna worry about it. Like
Mhm.
you guys take like whatever free things you guys want to, feel free to do what you want, but we're done with this film.
Mhm.
And then now that we have to show it in a showcase,
I've
bringing
seen that.
up-
Yeah, it's coming up, right?
yeah, it's coming up in October 16th.
How do you? It's no, that's good because like if anything, it entices people to go watch it because I saw you guys like grinding and all the problems you guys like kept like mounting and mounting. The fact you said it was
Yeah.
cursed, I remember I thought that for you guys
Yeah.
too. It really like hit an apex when your cinematographer got hit by a car.
Yeah.
It's like I wonder what it was that like so many things went wrong. How do you feel about the film now, like at the end product that you've seen it?
Now that I think, honestly, I don't think I ever actually sat through watching it all. I think what I did was I skimmed it because I was so tired. Like, I was annoyed with the film. I hated it, not
Mhm.
because of the quality, but just because of everything that went
Mhm.
down. I never wanted to see that film again. Like, I was done with it, and that was it. But now that it's coming up, like, it'd be nice to rewatch it and kind of have a different perspective now,
Yeah.
and seeing that we got this done despite everything
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
How did
yeah.
you feel of Mun, like our professor, her like critiques or how she treated you guys during the like process?
I think she meant well, but she was putting everything on me because I was speaking for basically Mike too, because he's a soft-hearted person
Mhm.
and he's soft-spoken too. So I had to basically tell him what needed to be done, because he was going through stuff, but on set he would let the cinematographer take the shots, and that's not the thing. You got to let the director do it, and then you communicate about it if that wants to be done. So I would tell him, and then Mun would also be like, you need a time to not be doing this because it's delaying your
Mhm.
production.
Mhm.
And I mean, we have to pay the person that we're using their location for too.
Yeah.
And he only gave us a short amount of time because it is a junkyard. None of the junkyards wanted to give us that time, and only he did. And again, like, he only gave us a couple hours, so we needed to get it done, and we couldn't if Mike wasn't on top of
Mhm.
it.
How did your
So,
actors feel like being part of that like difficulty?
the actors didn't really see what was going on. Like,
Oh,
while we were on
really?
set, we tried to be professional. We didn't
Yeah,
try to
of
bicker or
course, yeah.
anything, but it was behind the curtains that everything went down. So to
Mhm.
them, it was a good experience for them to do this
That's
film.
cool.
I don't think they had any issues. I think just once maybe they called like a little bit too early, but that was it. Like,
Mhm.
other than that, we made it pleasant for them. But for us, it was hell.
Yeah.
And Mun meant well, but she did put a lot of pressure on me, and I don't think she also realized that I had also like other classes and other
Mhm.
things that I was also
Mhm.
focusing on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I felt that. I always felt like I mean, that's when I felt like the most empathy for you because I could tell she was kind of putting too much responsibility on you when it really wasn't like it wasn't your fault. There was just so many things
Yeah.
that were out of your control that happened. I see it as more of like the film is almost like to me it's something to boast about because despite all that bullshit you went through, like you guys got it done and you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
did it. Like it's did you take any like lessons from it or you felt like you may apply it to like future projects?
I did. I think my thing would be to make sure that everything is secure for the very beginning, and to always have a plan Z. And I mean
Plan
Z, like
Z.
everything, like anything that can go wrong, you got to have a plan for from the very
Mm.
beginning. And after that, that's what I've had in mind going into
Yeah.
it. Like, I work on set as like an AD now, and that's where my mind goes. It's like, what can go wrong? I don't
Probably
know.
will go
Yeah.
Probably
wrong.
will go wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and prepare for that.
Damn.
So it's been
Honestly,
yeah.
yeah, that applies to like movie making. It really
Yeah.
does. Like, in the few sets that I've worked on, I always kind of think of Murphy's Law. Yeah, that's what it basically is. That like, for some reason, when you're trying to make a film, like everything that can go wrong will go
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
and it really sucks. Like, yeah, I love what you said. Plan Z, right?
Yeah.
It had Plan A,
Plan
Plan B,
Z.
Plan C, all the way to Z.
Yeah.
Be ready for anything.
It's just crazy everything that genuinely just happened between you guys, like making that whole film. But I think, yeah, like how you said, I feel like in the end, it's kind of like being proud that you still did it. Like you went through all this shit, and then in the end, you were still able to kind of like complete it.
Yeah.
Because it is crazy. Because it is crazy. Like just hearing what happened. Like first, like the lady left, and then it was like the cinematographer got into an accident out of
Yeah.
all things of like happening, and then after that, the director kind of just dipped and was like, "I'm out,"
Yeah.
and it was kind of like, damn.
Like not only is a global pandemic going on, but now you
Yeah.
got somebody stressing, yelling at
Yeah,
you.
yelling
Yeah.
at me too, you know, and I got my other classes I'm trying to worry
Yeah.
about, and I was in honors, so you got to keep a GPA or they kick you out.
Damn.
So it's like,
Oh, for real?
Yeah,
Damn.
like you have to. They give you certain years.
Mhm.
Like for
Yeah.
example, I think your freshman year you can get a 3.25, and then 3.50, and
That's still
then
pretty
the
high.
highest, like the lowest you can go for yourself, your junior and senior is like 3.75.
What?
Yeah.
Damn.
After that, they put you on probation if you go any lower, and then that's it. You
Damn.
got kicked out.
Wow.
Did you guys get a bad grade? We're also gonna go on a quick commercial break in about 10 seconds. But really quick before we go, did you get a good grade?
No.
Ah, boo!
Yeah.
Come on, man. That's messed up. I'll let her know. I'll send an email. All right, we'll be right back. Yeah, we're going on.
Yo, what's up? This is Rix.
Yo, this is Rennie.
What up, Dover in the building? What's good, family? This is Jesse, and this is
Brown Wealth Radio. And make sure to catch us on TGN Latinx every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, to be specific.
Hey, what's up, business owners? Are you looking to take your business a step forward? Are you looking for more people to know what you have to offer? You are in luck. The Good News Radio has a special deal for you right now. You can get a commercial slot 4 times a day, every day for a month. If you are interested, email contact@tgnradio.net for more information.
Hey, my name is Jasmine Sweets, and I'm so excited to be bringing you The Sweet Spot on TGN Vibes, Good Vibes, and R&B. Playing the old school, new school, and in between. I'm coming to you this summer. Stay tuned.
What's up, friends? It's IE and Friends. We're here at the Podcast Pit LA. It was so fun. We came to rep the IE. I think we did a pretty good job. So shout out to the Podcast Pit for having us. Shout out to TGN. You guys should definitely check them out. You should check me out, Saul V. Gomez.
Y'all can find me at I Know Caesar on IG. You can find me at airbear_IE on IG.
And you guys can find the podcast at IE and Friends on every social media network except for OnlyFans. That's coming soon. So stay tuned. So follow us and follow TGN Podcast Pit. Have a good day, guys.
Is it time for a career change? Are you looking for that role that pours back into your city? Bright Star Schools is an organization that is dedicated to supporting their educators to grow their careers, serving students and families all around the Los Angeles area. Apply now. Bright Star Schools is offering sign-on bonuses from $5,000 to $7,500. Bright Star Schools is your next career move. So apply today. Visit www.brightstarschools.org and click join our team or email your resume to teach@brightstarschools.org. Let's educate within.
It's back, Jax. Have you heard? It's back.
Michael, what are you talking about? What's back?
The Podcast Pit. It is returning Monday, May 23rd. Brand new venue.
Oh my God, the Podcast Pit is back. Exciting. Where's it at?
It's going to be at Joxer's Daily at 7:30 p.m.
I know where that's at. That's at 11168 Washington Boulevard in Culver City.
So, Jax, will I see you there?
Oh, you know it, baby. Sundays just got sweeter. The Hub Radio presents First Sundays Open Mic, hosted by Hub City Dre, DJ Gamma Ray, and the First Sundays Band. They're inviting all singers, rappers, comedians, and poets to show up and show out. Sign-ups begin at 6 p.m. Sundays Open Mic will take place every...
All right, welcome back, guys. Changing topics a little bit. So, Brenda, we always talk about basically anything that's going on like in the world, but I wanted to ask you, so we were talking a little bit before the show. So you said you're not religious, right?
No, I am not.
What made you not religious?
A lot of the things that go around being religious, I feel I don't like saying I'm Christian. My dad does. He'll say it all the time. He is Christian, and I respect that. You know, he actually acts like one. But I feel like that term has been corrupted by so many people that claim to be that, and all they throw out is hate.
Yeah.
And then you start associating that with their behavior. And one of the things when I was first going to church was act like you're representing. You know, so if you're gonna call yourself a Christian, you gotta act like it and you gotta represent that. You know, but after seeing all these things going on, I was like, it feels bad when I say like, yeah, I'm Christian.
Mhm.
You know, so I'd rather just say I'm spiritual because I also just don't go to church because of all the experiences I've had with church. So I'd rather just say, you know, like my relationship is with God, just me and Him. You know, I'll read the Bible. I'd rather do that than get a lecture from someone who's also going to give me like things I don't want, like their point of view of politics. You know, like that's not
Yeah.
why I'm going. I'm not going to listen to your politics. I'm going to like read the Bible and that's it.
Mhm.
You know, so after so many experiences like that, and I got yelled at before like exiting my church at the time, being told that I wasn't Christian enough because I wasn't voting for, or I didn't want to sign a bill basically
Mhm.
to do the what is it, the
Pro-choice?
Pro-life.
pro-life.
Mhm.
And I'm not about that. I am pro-choice for the women because despite of situations, you know, I know they say like, oh, what if she was this? What if this happened to her? It's like, no. And in general, like we would not make laws about men's reproductives, you know, we would
Yeah.
not be like, okay, you cannot jack off, you know, basically, you know, or you're gonna be put in jail because that like why? So I just see it as it's a woman's choice. What she wants to do with her body is her choice, you know? So I did not want to sign it. And I told them that. And then they started getting aggressive and started telling me that I'm not Christian, you know? So why am I even going here? So at that point, I was like, you're right. Why am I even going here?
Yeah.
I'm out.
So it was
Bye.
literally that moment, like that's when you separated yourself from the church.
Yeah. At that point, I was like, no, because if I go there, you know, you do the 10% at church. You know, they have it in Catholic churches too.
10%?
Oh, no,
Where
No,
you,
what is
where
it?
you go when they pass the little basket and you put money in it.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that's your tie. You know, I think it's called that. Yeah. So you put 10% of basically like everything that God has given you, like your paycheck and stuff, and you would put that
really?
there, and that goes to the church.
Yeah.
You know, so initially so that they can go ahead and give teachings to more people and stuff. You know, so it goes back to God.
Yeah.
Everything He
Mhm.
gives you goes back to Him.
Mhm.
So I was like, I'm not gonna go ahead and give you my 10%, you know, only so that you guys can come and yell at me when I'm trying to go home after having a good experience with you guys, you know?
Yeah.
And I was done with church after that. I was like, I'm not coming here. I was like, you guys are just like telling people all these things and just creating more hate
Yeah.
Mhm.
at that point.
Mhm.
I was like, I'm
Is there
done.
anything that isn't like Christian related that you believe in that's like still on the basis of spirituality? Like you know how we were talking about karma a little bit before the show?
Yeah.
Is there anything that isn't like Christian related that you do believe in?
I don't know that it's just primarily Christian. I do believe there is an afterlife.
Mhm.
You know, that I do believe in, and I know many religions believe in that where it could be like reincarnation. I don't know, but I do believe in afterlife. That is the one thing that will remain with me.
So just for the sake of clarity, you don't say like you're Christian, but you still maintain like some of the values where it's like love your neighbor as yourself,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do. Mainly I like to just be a kind person basically, you know. And when I mean spiritual, I mean like I do my prayers, you know, because I'm grateful, you know. And that's just how I was raised, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I was raised by my dad. So I still take some values that he gave me, but I am not going to go to church because I don't believe in that anymore.
Mhm.
You know, I like he does say, you know, it's good to be in fellowship and be with others, doing the like reading together and kind of going over the Bible together because you grow that way. But I was like, no, thank you. I'd rather be in my room and read it.
I find it interesting because I mean I hope you don't mind that
Um,
I'm bringing up that we talked about it before the show, but you mentioned that you experienced some racism in the church. I find that interesting because I mean I kind of hear about that, but our experience because we grew up Catholic. He mentioned in one of our episodes that he thought Jesus was Mexican because there's a lot of Mexican influence, at least in the church that we went to. So to
Yeah,
hear
it's
that
true.
your church was racist was, I don't know, at least surprising to me because I've never really met anybody who's had that like experience. Because you know, the church is supposed to be,
yeah.
you know, inclusive like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think after that, I know my dad stopped going for a bit because to say what it was that he had gone to church and the pastor had got up there and basically said that the Mexicans were gonna come and steal the jobs from us, And he said that on
Aw.
church, mind you, he has live stream too going on.
Oh wow.
And these are primarily conservative people, and I know that must have felt like crap for my dad, because
Yeah.
that is like, my dad is the most like Christian man I have ever met. Like he's kind, he's not he's like very, he keeps to himself. So while he's not like gonna go ahead and promote like LGBTQ, because biblically that's not like
Yeah.
biblically, so but for him it's like it's their life, like
Mhm.
I'm not gonna go ahead and support them, but if I see someone hurting them, like I'm gonna step up,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so that's my dad, so he's like, I'll be there because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to love you regardless.
Mhm.
So that's his view.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it should be implemented, right? Because
Mhm.
most of the people that tend to call themselves Christians and Bible, they get aggressive towards communities like that.
Yeah.
When it's like, you're supposed to be promoting love, not
Yeah.
hate.
Mhm.
So at that point, that's when I have issues with it. So I
Well, yeah,
know
because
for
at,
me-
Yeah.
at the end of the day, people who are religious or go to church, like they're going there because they want to better themselves,
Yeah.
be like a better human,
Mhm.
like kind of spread that throughout. And I imagine like hearing like, oh, like these Mexicans are gonna take our jobs. Like imagine this guy who's supposed to like teach you to love and be better is making you feel bad for simply being born just like Mexican. Like it's not like you made a choice to be Mexican,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly, and I mean, this isn't like the Old Testament, or like the whole Bible thing, but it's like at that point, it's like, Moses was speaking to the people on behalf of God, and he got punished for being angry when God was not angry, and that's why he couldn't go into the promised land, was because he lashed out and represented God in a way that wasn't his way of thinking, so he got punished for that. So it's like, if what happened.
There's lessons
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, there's lessons there. Is don't
Yeah.
don't go and say that you're representing him and act in a way that's not godly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm like, you weren't
Wow.
acting that way.
You're like really educated on like
Yeah.
the Bible
Yeah.
and like
Yeah, I'm
religious
telling
aspects.
you, me and my dad used to read the Bible when I was little. Like we would go and sit down and we would read the Bible together, because to him, he was really trying to install that into me,
Mhm.
especially because my mom was Catholic. So he was like, no saints, that makes no sense. So I was like,
Do you
okay,
guys-
Dad.
So okay, so I know about the Catholic side. I don't know too much about the Christian side. So there's always this confusion between the three of us because we're kind of more like, well, we just grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we're Catholic now. We don't
Yeah.
really identify it. But so do Christians believe in the Virgin Mary? Like, what is that?
So from what I've been told, the Virgin Mary is real. His mom was Mary, and she was a virgin.
Mhm.
When she had him, and that's it. That's
That's
They
it.
don't, they
it.
don't really expand on her.
No, they don't. They don't. We don't worship her. That's the
Mhm.
thing,
Mhm.
because she kneels down before her son,
Mm-hmm.
because she knew that he was God's son.
Mhm.
So why would we worship her if she's not the God here? She
Mhm.
was just a vessel, but he was actually God's son.
Mhm.
And while he did love her like a mom, still, it's still like, okay, yeah, we believe in her, she did exist, but we don't worship her because she worships him
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
So that's who we're gonna worship, is gonna be God and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and that's it.
Did you
Nice.
know that? Oh, sorry. Were you gonna say?
Well, I
something?
was gonna say that's just interesting. I mean, I don't know if it's Catholicism in general, if it's just the branch of like Mexican Catholicism, but the Virgin Mary is like a big figure there.
Yeah.
So like,
Mhm.
Well,
yeah,
I know at least La Virgen de Guadalupe,
Yeah.
the one that we have, doesn't exist at
Yeah,
all. It's
that one
only
doesn't.
for Mexicans
Yeah.
or Latinos, or I don't
Yeah.
know too much of
Yeah.
it, because my friend told me she also went to private school, and I think she was looking around the church, and I think she couldn't find La Virgen of Guadalupe, and she was like, where is she? And then either like a teacher or something was like, she doesn't really exist, like it's not an actual I think because she went to like a predominantly like white private school, that they were like, she doesn't really exist, she's not a real thing between other, I guess, Catholics. There is the Virgin Mary,
Yeah.
but La Virgen de Guadalupe doesn't really exist.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
too. 'Cause I remember, because my cousins, they're all Catholics, and that's who I grew up with my cousins. My
Mhm.
mom's side, and I remember telling my dad, I was like, like, where's the Virgen, you know,
Yeah.
like where, like I asked,
Mhm.
and he was like, no, you know, she doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The Virgin Mary existed,
Yeah.
but that was only the mom, and that was
Mhm.
it. So I was like, oh damn, that's
Yeah.
weird.
You know what it is that when the conquistadors came, when the Spain came and like took over Mexico, they obviously Mexico had the original religions, right? They
Mhm.
believed in like different gods, but they wanted to obviously convert them into like Catholicism, Christianity, whatever. So they thought the easiest way to do it is to take a figure of theirs that's already kind of close to something in the Bible. So they took it. I really wish I could pronounce it. I can't. It's called Teno. You know what I'm talking about? Teno.
Chitlan?
Yeah,
Something like that?
Tenochtitlan. I can't say it.
Like the city.
I know.
It's
I know
in my
what you're talking
genes.
Like the
about it.
city, the Tenochtitlan.
I think so.
I think you're talking about. I think
No, I'm
you're-
thinking about
no,
the
you're-
wrong one.
Yeah, you're thinking about the wrong one.
Either way, it was this Aztec god, like basically like similar to the Virgin Mary. What they did is they just converted that image and that idea into the Virgin Mary.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's what I heard too.
if you look at it, there's even like art
She
of
looks,
it.
yeah, it looks very similar. Like it looks very, very similar.
So that's what it is. Yeah, it's just to convert people.
I have a question for you. Well, just because I mean, I wouldn't say I'm religious, but like you said, there's some things that I maybe because I grew up with it that it's maintained. But it comes up a lot where people of indigenous descent, Mexican or Central American or even American indigenous, they'll kind of be like, you shouldn't really subscribe to Christianity because it's a colonizer pushed religion. What are your views on that as an indigenous woman?
Well, what I think of is please divine destiny. Yes.
Manifested?
Manifest destiny.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Manifest destiny. I
Yeah.
almost got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think of, you know, because in the early times, that's what it was God's basically telling us to take your lands and we're going to go ahead and take it.
Yeah.
You know, and while biblically that is correct, because that's sometimes not here, but you know, back in the olden days for the Bible times, that's what God would tell them, you know, was they don't believe in me, go in there and kind of wipe them out, you know.
Go forth and prosper, right?
Yeah, so I think that's what they started seeing it. They started adapting it, but that was in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
You know, that was
Before Jesus.
Before Jesus, you know, so that's what they started seeing was like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take all of your land. And it's because God is telling us that we need to take your land because you don't believe in him. But it's like, that's Old Testament. Old, you're not supposed to do it anymore. You
Is
know,
that really what it is? You don't listen. The Old Testament is like not meant to be like.
It's teachings. So the Old Testament was everything that happened before Jesus. Oh, sorry. Everything that happened before Jesus. So, I mean, I'm not a pastor, so I don't know everything by detail, you know? But it was just everything before Jesus. So, you know, an eye for an eye thing is not going to be done anymore after Jesus came and you're supposed to
Okay.
get forgiveness.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, that's what his whole point was, forgiveness.
Mhm.
You know, forgiving your sins. That's why he died.
Mhm.
You know, so to be able to say that after and say that that's why you're going to take someone's land and using Christianity as that's what I'm saying tarnishes the word Christian now. Because of all the history that happens, people use it as a way to act ungodly.
Yeah.
And be able to do all these cruel things in the name of God. And it's
Yeah.
like, why would God do that?
Yeah.
Why would you go ahead and try to preach
Mhm.
that Christianity is the
Mhm.
thing to do when you're
Mhm.
just acting evil?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. You said you.
I'm-
So okay, wait. What are you?
I was just gonna say I'm looking getting mind blown a little bit.
You're blowing her mind.
"Damn, bro." Well, cause like yeah, I grew up Catholic, but I don't remember anything that I learned in school overall, like about like the New Testament, the Old Testament, and like you kind of, cause you had experience, I guess, with the Bible, right? Like
Yeah.
you read it and everything. I've never really read it. Even though we always had
Oh my
lessons
God.
on it, but
I'm telling our priest.
but it's just like interesting because it kind of like all makes sense now of like the Old Testament. It is like it's lessons that you learn that you should like, this isn't how you should be, right? And then there's the New Testament where it's like this is now like with Jesus and forgiveness and everything. And I was kind of like, bro, what? That's crazy.
This feels like Bible
It's-
study.
I know.
We're like talking about like the Bible and scriptures.
I always think it's interesting, like even outside of like the religious view. I've always thought Jesus, like as a figure, if you're religious or you're not religious, was like really, really interesting. Because like you said, the Old Testament the idea of God's like completely different. God's like this more wrathful kind of character.
Mhm.
God's like, if you're like this, I mean, Noah's Ark, he wipes out the entire planet because
Yeah.
they're not acting godly.
Yeah.
And but then Jesus shows up and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's like let's say
Let's relax for a second.
well, because he's supposed to be God. He's God in 3 persons or whatever, like
Yeah.
that, right? So then he comes and he says, like, don't be like that. You should be completely forgiving. So, like, let's say even like if you look at it at the objective fact of like Jesus was just some wandering prophet. He wasn't really like he wasn't God, but he was a guy because historians kind of agree that there was at least a Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that like whatever this guy was saying made this religion do a complete 180.
Yeah.
You know, I always think that's
True,
really
yeah.
interesting.
That's
'cause
why.
it's
That's why I'm like, my ass is getting mind blown because I'm like, where is it that it kind of got lost in a way?
Bro, in a
Because
philosophical
that's how it
sense,
feels. It feels like it got lost. Like people kind of lost.
No,
what
yeah.
it was really saying.
I mean, not to say that like the Bible isn't like it's all flowers and stuff. It's
Yeah.
not. There
Yeah.
are some things in there that will make you wonder, like, is God even good?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There are some things in there, you know, that'll make you
Yeah.
question that. But I think that's the whole point. It's like you gotta read it all,
Yeah.
you know, to understand it. I have not read it all. I have read like
that shit is thick, bro, and it's
I-
like so thin.
Yeah.
Too.
I think
no, it's
I
like
think-
one single space.
I think the one thing that I did read all was Proverbs, which is basically teachings, and it's something that like as much as I said like I'm not religious, but
Mhm.
that is the one thing that I will always tell people is like you don't have to be religious, but I do recommend reading that because it is like some life teachings in there.
It's like
that-
philosophy, right?
Yeah, like it implements you, you know? Like
Mhm.
one thing is like just to it's not by verbatim,
Mhm.
you know, but it's basically says like don't argue with someone who's not worth arguing with. Like someone that's just going to continue arguing with you, like what's the point?
Yeah.
Like why are you going to go ahead and try to convince someone of something when their mind is already set? You know, there's no point. Like
Yeah.
save your breath.
Mhm.
So at that point, that's what I took.
That's
you
a
know?
good one.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
I've-
certain of those
I've
kept.
seen. I think I usually see them like on Twitter. There's like snippets of like the Bibles, and it's like they're really good lessons, and I'm like, wow. Sometimes I'm like, I should read it, but it's just like, damn,
We're
getting
really-
around it.
This is the conservative podcast now. This really is Bible
study.
study.
No, yeah, I've always felt that
This
like
is the book club. We're
that,
talking
like,
about Bible right
the
now.
parts that I always felt that Jesus would always spit facts. That that whenever the Bible
He
would
had
bring-
bars.
well, because everything that everybody has a problem with the Bible.
Mhm.
I mean, oh God, I hope nobody pulls something up, but like, but like for the most part, there's nothing really that Jesus says that is kind of like problematic. Like it holds up, you know, right?
Yeah, no,
Because,
I mean, he was
he-
love your neighbor. What was it? Turn the other cheek.
Turn the other
like-
cheek. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, or whatever.
There's some dude. There's some cool like, especially because we like
Yeah.
movies. You know
Yeah.
how we think of movies,
Yeah.
and like sometimes
Are you gonna
like
tell
the
me Mel Gibson one?
no.
Okay.
That's oh my god. That's
Have you
I can
have,
talk
you,
about that.
have you guys heard about that though?
What?
Because you know how he directed Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
guy got hit by the thunder.
No,
the
have you-
lightning.
no,
I
yeah,
heard
there
that.
was a lot of like the entire set. Like they say, it wasn't cursed, but like that there was a lot of weird occurrences that Jim
heard that.
Caviezel, the guy who plays Jesus, got struck by lightning twice.
Yeah. I heard
Yeah.
that.
I think he also like the cross like dislocated his shoulder because it was like real, like it was actually really
Yeah.
heavy. And they had like I think the guy who played Judas, he wasn't Christian or Catholic, but he like begged to like he asked because they had a priest on set as like an advisor of like,
Mhm.
oh, this is what happened in the Bible. Like maybe if you want to act it this way, this that a bunch of people and specifically the guy who played Judas, like he came and was like, can I convert to Catholicism?
Really?
That like a bunch of people like converted and that like there was a lot of weird occurrences on set. I can't remember exactly, but I think something like it was like really
Damn.
cursed, like that weird occurrences would
What?
occur on that.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. That is. I think my only issue with the way Jesus is depicted, not in that film, but just in general, is that he's like white.
Yeah.
most of these.
No, you're right. Yeah.
That man was not white.
Yeah.
He was not white. With
He's
like,
Middle Eastern.
Yeah, he's Middle
Yeah.
Eastern. That man had a tan.
Don't they say in the
You know?
Bible he had olive or whatever?
Oh, they do in the Bible.
Yeah.
They say he has like darker
But
skin.
that's
yeah.
that's the issue. That's why it's like a lot of conservative people that tend to be white, like force this on them, you know, and they feel like higher than others because they'll think that God and Jesus is white. That's not
Yeah.
the case. You know, he was brown. He was an immigrant. You know, his parents went over there gave birth to him in a different country, so they were immigrants too.
Yeah. No, it is ironic. I mean,
Yeah.
like these conservative people who are like all for America are believing in a religion that's from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, especially you look at things like 9/11 where they were like, fuck those guys,
Yeah.
It's like, bro, you're literally believing in their religion.
Yeah, and it's like the whole God thing, like they'll put it in everything, like God, 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 and it's like you're not
Gods and
doing
guns.
anything. Yeah, gods and guns. It's like you're not doing anything to represent that.
Mhm.
It's like even like for example, like healthcare. Like Jesus didn't go around healing people and been like, all right, give me $10.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I'll cure you
Solid.
for $10.
Yeah.
It's like that man went and cured everyone.
He did it for free.
He
What do
cured
you-
the people. He didn't charge them.
Yeah.
He did preach, but he didn't charge them.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of? There's a theory. I mean, I wish I knew who it was that Jesus and Christianity, Catholic, all those things are psychological warfare. That the Romans created a religion,
Oh yeah.
specifically to use to control the people. That because a lot of people say that spirituality is where it's at, and religion is just to control you. But there's like a theory that like supposedly is it the Romans?
It is,
It's the Romans, right? Who like they were like
in the theory that you're thinking about, yeah, people say it was the Romans who
that
created
they planned out like that Jesus would be. They would just create a religion for the people that they wanted to control to believe, and then tailor it so that it would make them easy to like control.
I can see that because when you're defined by religion, I do think that's when you start getting that cult mentality.
Well, yeah, right. Because like, I think there's a lot of religious people who would be open to a lot of, I guess, liberal like ideas, whether it's like LGBT, supporting the LGBT, or being pro-choice. But then they're always kind of held back by that, like, oh, well, the Bible is not too cool about that, you know?
You see, but the whole thing is like, despite all the things, and this is sometimes that I would have arguments with my dad about, and it was free will. Like we're not arguments. We would have discussions about how other people would try to implement their views onto people, and it was ultimately like, well, it's free will, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole point of it is that you have free will. That's why you can go and do as much damage as you want, as much evil as you want, according to the Bible, and you can go ahead and get forgiveness.
Yeah.
But all your actions are not being controlled by God. Like obviously, like in us, it's like my one question to my dad was always like, okay, like if he knows that I'm gonna go ahead and do something extremely evil, and then, like why doesn't he stop me? Why is this happening then? And ultimately it was like, well, it's free will. Like you're able to do what you want. He's not gonna control you. You can do what you want.
Yeah.
It's like, but whatever punishment you get, that's also what you're gonna get because you decided to go out and do that. So one thing is like free will was an important thing that was in the Bible that always stuck with me. Like you can do whatever you want ultimately, and that's your decision. And like the whole thing with my dad was like, oh, like LGBT, like that community, like LGBTQ, was like my dad isn't gonna go ahead and like wear the whole thing, but he's also not gonna go ahead and be homophobic. He's going to respect them because they're human beings, and he's supposed to respect them and love them, and care for them. And his thing was like, I mean, I'm not going to go and support it. Again, like pro-choice. He's not pro-choice or pro-life. His thing is more like it's whatever they want to do, which I'm still guessing is pro-choice because he's like, it's their choice. I'm like, pro-choice, So he's like, it's free will. You have your free will to be who you want.
Yeah.
But the least you can do is be decent and respect others about their decisions. So it's like that's something everyone should take.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen? Because you know that there's the Jeffrey Dahmer show
Oh,
that
yeah.
everybody's up in arms about. Have you seen this guy on TikTok where he's like, he's saying that he's like arguing that Jeffrey Dahmer went to heaven because he's like Jeffrey Dahmer was a Christian and he accepted Jesus before he died, so he went to heaven. Have you seen that? It's like
No,
all
I
over
haven't.
TikTok,
No, I
and,
haven't.
and there's a bunch of people who are like,
I did have that discussion with my boyfriend. We finished watching it, and we had that discussion about that.
Yeah,
because
right.
in that scene, he asked for forgiveness, And one of the other inmates, like he was already trying to be like in the religion, you know, and he was trying to clear himself out, like clear his sins and stuff.
Yeah.
And so my boyfriend was like, well, that's stupid. He's like, that guy's over there like stressing himself out, and then Jeffrey's gonna come in and be like, forgive me, Lord, and then go to heaven.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he did go to heaven. I would like to think not, you know?
Right.
But even like, and this is my flaw with the Bible, that it's like, if you ask for forgiveness, your sins will be washed away. You know?
No matter what you do.
No
right?
matter what you do, because you deserve that too. But I was like, but I would not go and kill someone like that. You know, like do all these, I would not be a serial killer, you know, and go and do all these things and cause so much damage to families and then still be like, sorry, God.
Well, it's
And
because
go to heaven. You know, that's
No,
not.
yeah. There's like this there's this philosopher who's like happens to be a priest that I actually think is interesting because like like I said, I've always found Catholicism like and using it in philosophy is really interesting. Just because not even religious, interesting wise.
No, it is interesting.
And he was talking about how like he was answering what people say about that, like, and he was saying like, yeah, that's interesting because like for some people, the idea of heaven is that some people aren't gonna be there. So it's like, you know, so it's I don't know. I just think that's interesting, you know.
Yeah. Oh, really quick. The app is about to go offline. Brenda, tell everybody who's listening on the app where they can find you.
You guys can go ahead and find me at Brenda_the Wanderer.
Yeah, go to our profile.
Instagram.
You'll see her tagged in there. You'll see the post. Go ahead and follow her for YouTube. If you guys still want to listen in, just go right on over, switch on over. We'll still be here. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so
We
what were
continue on
saying?
YouTube for a little bit.
Yeah, what were we saying?
I was just saying that like this guy was this philosopher priest guy or whatever. He was talking about his interpretation of hell or whatever. And there's that saying where it's like it's easier to fit a camel through the eye of a needle than it is to get a soul into heaven. That's like a philosopher who's a saint.
So like
said
getting
that-
into heaven is extremely hard.
yeah, that you have to be like really, it's really difficult to get in heaven. And he's answering this and he's talking about how like he doesn't agree that because he always talks about how that's his favorite philosopher because he's a saint as well. And he was saying that like in his opinion, the Bible kind of has it wrong on hell and heaven, that it's more like he views it as hell is a place that is locked from the inside, that God doesn't send you there, but you send yourself there. Because in the Bible, I mean, there's people who interpret it where it's like when Jesus talks about hell, he's not talking about like the underworld. He's talking about Gehenna, right? Which is like it was like a dumpster, like it was like a
Yeah, I've
landfill
heard of it,
outside
yeah.
of. And what he's saying is, or what this guy's interpreting is saying that like, what he's saying is that hell is a place far away from God. It's not necessarily a place that you go to. It's more of like
it's a state.
It's a
like
state
mind,
of it's a state of
right?
being that like
Yeah.
when you're far from God, and if you want to say God is love and all these things, and you're in the state of hatred or all these things, that you're more there. And I always thought that interpretation was really interesting because it kind of like.
So does that mean that everybody who dies goes to heaven?
Well, I don't know. That's why I think it's
Right?
so interesting because like the way he was breaking it down was like it's more a state of being and a state of mind than it is a physical place.
You see,
You
I've
know?
heard differently. Like I would have conversations with one of my friends because she's a Jehovah's Witness, and we
Oh,
would
wow.
always talk about like hell,
Mhm.
you know, because at the end of times in the Bible and stuff, it's when people were gonna basically be thrown into the lake of fire. The
Yeah.
people that didn't ask for forgiveness after the whole 7-year thing, then they're gonna be thrown into the lake of fire. And for her, she like in her religion, as she's told me before, is that they don't see it as an actual hell. It's more like kind of like a state of mind
Yeah.
too. Like, but you're dead, but you're not actually gonna be thrown into a lake of fire. Whereas in Christianity, they actually see it as like, no, you're going to a lake of fire,
Like they're pushing your ass in there.
they're they're gonna push your ass in there, so that's the difference. And I think it also has to do with how the Bible's written, because a lot of the things are metaphors.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, it's metaphors, and that's what sucks about it, because you'll
You
have
can kind of interpret it however you
yeah,
want.
and that's the flaw too, is that when you have preachers and pastors and priests, they start seeing it the way
Literal.
they see it literal, others see it other ways, and that's also why I stopped going to church, because each time I
How
would
long
go,
ago? How long ago did you
I
like stop?
stopped. It's been like maybe 5 years, about
Oh,
5 years or
wow.
more. Yeah. And that's also where I stopped, because I would go downstairs with the adults and get a different interpretation of the verse. And then I would go upstairs to the youth and get a different interpretation on that. So on the same verse. So I'm like, I don't understand. What am I supposed to believe then? Because when I read it, I see it this way too.
Mhm.
So it didn't make sense to me anymore.
Like I've always thought it was eerie. I can't remember if it's like if it's actually in the Bible or if it was like in a movie or something. I'll ask you because you've read the Bible.
I didn't
That,
say all of it.
but like there's a part where I think Jesus like kind of predicts the future or something, where he says something like, my name will be used incorrectly, like
Oh yeah.
like when you
Mhm.
like that people are gonna do atrocities in my name, or he says something like that. And I always thought that was kind of eerie because like I mean
It's
he's
true.
kind of right, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it happens.
I don't remember that. Maybe I just didn't read up to there. But all I do remember is like him predicting that like Peter was gonna betray him. I mean, deny him, and that Judas was gonna betray him.
That always freaked me out too, was
It was Peter, right?
that all the apostles
Yeah, because
died
Peter
brutally.
Peter gets beheaded, no?
No, Peter gets crucified upside down.
Oh.
He's
I don't know.
he's-
Okay, then
who's-
never mind. Not Peter. I don't know. I'm not an
you
actual
mean Judas,
pastor.
right?
No,
is-
Judas was
Judas
the one, but he
betrayed him.
predicted that he was gonna betray him.
Yeah.
But he also predicted one of his other disciples. I want to say Peter, but
Thomas.
I forgot.
I think
Peter
That
would
denies him.
Peter would deny him 3 times.
Yeah, that's what it
so
was.
Peter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that he
no,
denied
yeah,
him.
I always think it's really interesting that I don't, because Peter's the first pope, right? He's canonically the first pope, right?
Oh, I don't know. We don't believe in popes.
Oh, but for us, I think yeah, it's like, upon this rock you will build my church or whatever, because like it's supposed to be like
Yeah.
you're not supposed to build on a rock or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think it always scared me as a kid, thinking about how like all the apostles died brutally. Because
Yeah.
I think Peter got crucified upside down. One of them got crucified in an X.
Yeah.
Someone got skinned alive. I think it was
Mhm.
Thomas.
Mhm.
And I think Jesus tells them too, like, that's what's gonna happen if you continue to keep your faith in me. And they're like, nah, like I don't know.
They're like,
I-
who cares? Yeah. I'll
like,
still believe.
just
Yeah.
just to hear that kind of stuff, like as a kid, is like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
this is
See,
pretty-
that's the whole thing, is like having faith, and that's the really scary thing. I know that's what always freaked me out as a kid, believing in all of that, was because you never got like assurance. Like science tells you a different thing.
Yeah.
Science is like, wow, your energy actually leaves and goes somewhere.
Yeah.
Because we've actually measured it, that during your last times, when you take your last breath, of weight gets off of you. And there's like been like, I've seen like videos of like energy leaving.
They mentioned
So-
that in Breaking Bad, right?
They do, yeah.
Where it's
The soul.
I can't remember what it was, but I think it's like, I don't think there's been like a lot of studies, but I think there's like one scientist who like he measured dead bodies, and like his hypothesis was that the soul weighed like 0.13 grams or something, because after somebody died, that's how much they
Yeah,
dropped
there was
in weight.
something missing. There was
See,
something missing
yeah.
chemically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, it's that whole thing of faith that always
Yeah.
freaked me out. Was like, okay, I could believe in him as much as I want, and then what if when I die, it's just
It's not real. Like it's
yeah,
just something else.
What if it was
right?
another god that I'm over here?
Right.
That's what always freaked me out.
The way I thought about it too the other way is because, like I said, like I'm not religious, like honestly at all. But I think about it as like, well, I hope if there is God, or if he's out there when I die, he'll be like, it's okay, bro. You didn't know any better, you know? You didn't know any better.
Yeah.
That's how we were talking about Jeffrey Dahmer on one of the episodes that we had recently. We talked about how like that type of stuff, right? Like let's say you repent before you die. Let's say Hitler, or like, oh my
Yeah.
god, we mentioned Hitler again.
Yeah.
We got told that we mentioned Hitler way too much on the show. Anyways, they like whatever, really bad person, Jeffrey Dahmer, dies, but before he dies, he repents and he's like, oh, Jesus saved me. And then Jesus does. We talked about how like, I guess if you see it as like this is just our soul living on earth and like experience, you can't really blame us for our actions, because like we're just a soul kind of learning. Like we're almost like, it's almost like blaming a child for not knowing what it should have known when it dies, right? Like
That's true. I mean, I did also have those discussions with my dad about like, okay, like, are you? Because it's like now you know about Jesus at this point. Like mostly everyone knows about Jesus, So his thing was like, well, if you don't know about him, you don't repent, you go to hell. And my thing was like, okay, what about like these tropical islands that no one's ever been there in years, and they don't know about him and they die? Like, how are they gonna go to hell?
Yeah,
they,
right.
They never knew about him. Like, how is that fair? they literally never knew Jesus. So how would that work? And then there's the whole thing of like Jeffrey Dahmer being able to like repent, and what if he did go to heaven? And then in the Bible there is this one dude who would actually go and kill people that did believe in God. I believe it was. He would go and kill people, basically like he was a cruel ruler or a general, and he did so many atrocities. And then he got to know Jesus, and he ended up like basically preaching after for him. And it's like, okay, well, all these people that you just killed, like, what about that?
Does it make up for it?
Yeah, but like he's in the Bible, and he has that relationship with God now. So it's like, how is that fair? For the people that you killed.
Well, because there's even in the Bible, like as Jesus is dying, it's the guy that's getting crucified right next to him. Right?
Yeah, that
was
one
like,
too.
remember me when you enter in your kingdom. There's even a song about it.
Yeah.
They would make us sing.
And he didn't ask him, like, what'd you do? Like, he was just like, that's the whole point. It's like, he doesn't ask what you did, but as long as you believe in him, you go to heaven.
Yeah.
Well, it's because like it's like you said, like it's a metaphor, right? Like it's probably not literal.
That's
or
what you don't know.
I always you don't know, you don't know. But we talk about all the time how like I think the reason like the three of us have always been like a little bit of like just thinkers is because we went to Catholic school for like 8 years as like little kids, and the Bible is just a book of philosophy, so it just makes you think. And so like that, right? Like the dilemma, the paradox. somebody kills somebody for believing in God, but then they convert, and I'm like, I believe in God. So does he deserve to go to heaven even though he killed someone for believing the same thing he's believing in now? Right?
Yeah, that honestly, I don't know. I wish I knew that answer. 'Cause that's always like that's something that always baffled me too. Was like, how can someone so evil and so cruel be able to go to heaven? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if there is reincarnation, I would hope they come back as like a little bug, continuously crushed every single like.
Do you think?
Life.
Okay, you said you believe in the afterlife. Have you ever experienced anything like ghostly? Like, have you?
I do, and that is why it keeps reaffirming my belief for like God, because I'm like, my family has seen so many things that at this point I'm like, well, I mean, if these spirits exist, I know damn well there's gonna be good ones, right? Because for my dad, he was severely haunted as a kid. Like he lived in a house with my grandma, his siblings, and then his aunt and their kids, because they were poor, so they lived with my great grandfather, who was a pretty wealthy man over there. So they shared one big house, like basically an apartment, and they would go there and they would see things, and everyone agrees in my family that my dad was the one that was most haunted, which is freaky because he was the firstborn male out of everyone.
Oh, really?
Out of all the siblings, all the cousins, he was the first one born, a male. And well, firstborn first of all, and then a male. And so that always stayed with him, and he would always tell me his horror stories of all the things he would see. Like
what?
they would be in the house alone, and my great grandfather, he had sewing machines. Like that's where he made his money. He got a lot of sewing machines to basically create an industry to make clothes, and he would have it all on the top floor. And after the workers would leave, they would lock it and make sure no one could get in. And they would be at the very bottom floor, and they could hear the machines working, so they would go and check, and obviously it's still locked, but they can see the machines working. And so that would freak them out, and they would go back downstairs, and then they would hear footsteps up there walking back and forth. And then he said that the one that freaked him out the most was when he heard footsteps running down the stairs, but there was no one up there.
Oh, that's scary. Yeah, it's like hereditary.
And this is his freakiest one that still stays with me. He was laying in bed with his brother next to him, and I believe his mom too. I mean, they're poor, so they share a bed, and he got sleep paralysis. So he woke up and he couldn't move. And he said that he saw something, like across from him was a couch, and he saw something creep under the couch. And he just kept looking there in that direction. And he said that a girl jumps over the couch, goes running to him and stands on top of him, and is just staring him in his eyes. And he said that he closed his eyes and he started praying and praying and praying. And once he opened his eyes, she was gone. She was just disappeared.
Sleep paralysis is scary.
Yeah.
For some people.
I
Especially
hate
because it's
sleep
natural.
paralysis.
You've had it before?
I used to suffer from sleep paralysis, and it was the
Really?
scariest thing. It used to happen to me a lot. And because I'm freaking Mexican, you know, they would go and bust that crap out, being like, "There's a muerto on top of you."
You
You
gotta do
know,
an exorcist on you.
yeah, that's why. And then they would also tell me like, maybe it's how you sleep. Maybe you shouldn't do this when you go to sleep. You know? Why would I go to sleep like this? This is no reason. I wake
Yeah.
up with it, you know. But my most horrifying one that I had was, and I never really saw anything. It was mainly my parents, you know. But this one freaked me out. I was in my bedroom. My dad was at work, and I had my little dog with me. And I was just like watching TV, you know, and I hear like footsteps in the house, and I'm like, it's weird. Like usually my dad, when he comes in, he's always like, oh yeah, you know. And I'm like, and I was like, oh,
Arriba.
yeah.
He does that.
No, oddly enough, that is my dad's favorite character though.
Oh, you like Speedy Gonzalez?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Speedy Gonzalez. He used to do
Okay.
impersonations of him.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
That's cool. Yeah,
but-
honestly, okay, just really quick side note. I'm sorry. I've heard that Mexican people actually really like Speedy Gonzalez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he loves Speedy Gonzalez. But I was like, but being told to do that voice, I was like, nah.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, you were saying.
yeah,
you were
so I was like, oh, my dad got home, you know. So I call out to him. I was like, hey, you know, I call my dad Gordo. So I'm like, hey, Gordo, did you get home? You know, and he doesn't like he didn't say anything. And usually he always says something. So I was like, that's weird. So I was like, oh, whatever. I'm just gonna continue watching my TV. You know, so I'm still watching it, and I hear footsteps, like deep ass footsteps, like go towards my door and kick my door. And I'm like, what the hell? I was like, damn, what'd I do? Is he mad at me or something? I was like, Dad? And this is when I knew something wasn't okay. Cause then my dog, he's the sweetest dog ever. I've never seen him get mad or growl or anything. And he got off and he was right there smelling under the door, just still. And he didn't want to come. I was like, oh, Maxie, come here. And he didn't want to move. And I call my dad as my dog is still there. And I call him. I was like, hey, Dad, like, are you home? You know, he's like, no, I'm not home. Obviously, when I heard him talk, I was like, I'm not hearing you talk through that door. So I know you're not here. And I told him what was going on. And he's like, okay, I'm on my way. So he came home and we did like a full routine check of the whole house and nothing was there. And after that, I was like, I'm done. I believe everything.
I gotta go back to
done.
church.
Yeah.
I remember you remember this teacher, Mr. A. I won't say his name.
Oh,
but,
okay, yeah.
he used to talk about, I can't remember if it was like his friend or his brother or something, that like he had a kid and that like his kid would talk or like see ghosts or whatever. And that like it was getting bad. It was so long ago. It was like 3rd or 4th grade. I can't really remember the details, but he said that like it was really becoming like a problem. Like he felt like it was really like getting scary. And that he read that Great Danes, the dogs, the big ones, that those were used back in the day to scare off ghosts because they're so big. And so he bought a couple to like he bought 2, to like to patrol his house. And he said that like the dogs, like he swears that the dogs like knew that like there was something
presence.
that there was a presence and that they were doing their job, like patrolling the house all the time, pacing, because that he said that they felt like there was something to like guard. I always thought that was like, kind of creepy and cool to like, if you have a ghost, you just grab a Great Dane. That's
I feel like I feel like animals can sense that.
Probably,
They
right?
definitely
They do.
can. After that with my dog, I was like, yeah. And then my dad told me about this once that he was in Mexico and it was really hot.
always
It's always
Mexico.
Mexico, dude. And then he was in the living room sleeping because it was so damn hot in the bedroom. So he went out to the living room to get some fresh air and it was humid, it was raining, you know, and he said that he was like trying to fall asleep and he couldn't, and all the dogs started barking at the same time. Like all the block's dogs were just barking nonstop, crazy. And he said that all of a sudden they all shut up and there was like La Llorona cry. Like he was like,
You swear? You
Yeah.
swear?
And my dad was like, after that, I was like, nah. I grabbed my stuff and I went back to my room. It's like, I'm good, thanks.
I feel like I believe it because like we were saying, like joking around, and like Mexico, I feel like just like the spiritual energy is like different in Mexico.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just because there's a lot of historical context, you know,
Yeah.
like a lot of
bad things have happened.
Yeah, a lot of bad things have happened a lot of bloodshed in Mexico. Because I mean, my brother, he had a ghost experience too when we were in Mexico. I remember he was he's taking a shit downstairs, and we were all upstairs. We were all sleeping already, and then he heard somebody, like you said, somebody walk down the stairs and then walk the hallway and then stop right in front of the door, and he's like, "Dad, like, is that you?" And then he kept hearing like it pacing back and forth downstairs, and then always stopping at the door that he was in. And he said that he was so scared of like opening it, and then finally he's like, my brother's like he's kind of like, yeah,
Screw it, I'm gonna
he's
do
like
it.
he's brave, he's a brave guy, and so he's like, fuck it, like, all right, let's go,
Let's
like,
go.
he's ready to
Throw
fight
a
this
hammer
ghost. And he opens it and there's nothing there. And the next morning he asked like my parents, like, oh, did you guys go downstairs like around this time or whatever? I'm like, no, nobody, not even me, not even my sister. Like we all, I remember when he told me, I was like, no, like not at all. And it's scary because our house was on the edge of town. So if you look out, we have our wall is basically all just windows. So when you look out at night, it's nothing but pitch blackness. Just like because it's the edge of town, nothing but cornfields and fields for miles.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty scary. I remember one time, me and my cousin too, we were chilling. This isn't a ghost story. It was just something scary that happened. We were chilling and watching 40-Year-Old Virgin because we don't have cable. in
That's
Mexico.
scary.
Yeah, that's a scary story. And then all of a sudden we just hear this girl scream. Like this girl just like scream like loud as hell. And I remember I looked at my cousin and he looked at me and we ran to my room and we locked the door. And it was just like nothing. We don't have an explanation for what it was. Just a girl screamed. Probably, I don't know. Something happened. She like fell or something. I don't know.
That happened to me too. Me and my family went up to Big Bear. We camped out there, and we like to go to this one spot. It's actually in the San Bernardino Mountains, not necessarily Big Bear, but a little bit further in. And you have to go off-roading to get there, and then you camp. So we like to go near a river, and we were there. It was nighttime, and it's just us. You can see the fire if somebody else was lighting a fire nearby, and it's not really a campsite anyways. So the only cars that pass by there are going to be people that are off-roading in the middle of the night. And you just hear like a loud scream of a woman, like a blood-curdling scream. And I am a very alert person. Like I can see something move. If I'm looking at like a plane, like a whole ass field, I can see something move and I'll like focus on that. And I can hear things like crazy. And I told him, I was like, did you guys hear that? And like a couple of them didn't, but like my uncle did, and my friend, she did. She's like, yeah, what the hell is that? And we like to be armed.
Really? Yeah. That's cool.
We
I
like
fuck
to
with
be
that.
armed. So we like loaded them and we're like, what the hell? Let's go look around, make sure that there isn't like something going down.
Okay.
And we were calling out to see if anyone was there so we can like help if it was anything. And no, they're like we didn't see anything. We didn't find anything. And it's pitch black because we're in like the forest.
Yeah.
So you can't see anything and the light only goes so far. So after that, we were like, all right, we're all going to sleep with our guns by side. Let's go. So that was it.
Yeah, that's badass. You guys are like the final girl in like a horror movie.
That's what I've been told. Yasu actually tells me that all the time. She's like, I think I would trust you if the world was ending. She's like, I would trust you to go ahead and take care of me. And I was like,
Okay, we've been we went a little over because I really like this conversation, but we got to tune out. Brenda, go ahead and tell everybody what you're up to and where they can find you.
I am. You can find me on Brenda_the_Wanderer on Instagram, and all I'm gonna be up to these next few months is getting a pilot series pitching. So that's it.
That's good.
That's
and
it.
so you'll see her on TV or
Hopefully.
in the movies.
Hopefully.
We'll see you guys next week. This is a good episode. Brenda, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks for having me,
Yeah.
guys.
All right, yeah. We'll see y'all next time. Make sure y'all follow us on Instagram. And we got a TikTok at Primos Chidos Radio Show. So we'll see y'all next time, next Thursday at 12. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Bye.